Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Linsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome.
We have a really fun episode for you guys today. We've been wanting to do more video game content, and looks like June we're going to have lots of game content for you guys. But we thought it would be fun to look at some of the games that inspired us over the years.
Yeah, so this was just kind of sort of an idea that popped up literally today. We're probably going to title it The Games That Made Us, which at time of recording is
it's not copyrighted, not trademarked, it's not on Netflix yet. So we're gonna own it.
Yeah, just come at us in the comments later. My poor little heart can't take that right now.
I know.
But yes, we really wanted to do something that was just kind of harkening back to our roots. And I'm currently filming in my childhood home. The bad part about that is I have crappy sound, I have crappy video. But the good thing about that is that I have so many relics.
Props.
I have so many relics from my childhood here. Yeah. And I've got them all in a big stack next to me. So we will pick and choose and go through those.
Yes. Well, I do have like the boxes for some of the games that we'll talk about, but they're like not from my childhood. They're like, you know, because I had the games from my childhood and then the games that influenced me later in life, which I do have like those games.
There's a huge difference. All right. Especially I think for you and me, because the time in which we grew up,
yeah,
they were definitely the formative years of console gaming as well as computer computer gaming. And I started out gaming because my dad loved the idea of having a home office and a home computer, and he built our computer. And the games that he had downloaded, he actually was he was a pilot, and so a lot of his fellow captains were also big tech nerds, and so they would exchange floppy disks of games and just random programs and stuff like, dude, you gotta check this out, you gotta check that out. And a lot of them, because they had children, were computer games. But the games that I started off on was DOS games.
Same.
On MS-DOS mode, which was a whole other thing. I think my favorite DOS game was Jill of the Jungle.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Do you know that one?
Yes. So I mean,
yes, okay, you're the only person.
And I are a couple years apart in age.
Yes.
But yes, so besides Atari and the original NES, yes, like my first exposure was my Apple IIc computer when I was in middle school / high school. So yes, the DOS games.
The DOS games were huge. Okay, so I just kind of want to, there's a few that I have to go over because Jill of the Jungle, I cannot believe you know that. You're the only person. I even put this up on Patreon and people are like, I don't know, like, you can cosplay Jill. That's cool. I don't know who she is though. And like everybody, I think I maybe had like 19 patrons at the time. This was years ago. And I thought it was so sweet of them that they were just like, I don't know who that is, but you rock it, girl.
Dude, it was a bestseller at the time.
But like, can we agree that Jill was definitely like the hottest 8-bit babe that you
she obviously, I mean, she predated Lara Croft. She predated Mortal Kombat, even the arcade Mortal Kombat. Yeah. So that gave us what?
Did she predate Princess Peach?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't know.
Good question. What year did this?
We didn't do the
1992. Jill of the Jungle came out in 1992.
Okay.
So yeah, no, because Mario Brothers came out in 83.
Hot Barbarian Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super into her because she could change into animals, if you remember. Like if you found the right, like if you found the right little totem in the game, you could touch it and you could turn into either a bird or a fish. And that really, like, Tiny Genevieve really jammed with that. Loved that aspect of the game.
Yeah.
And again, it's just little 8-bits. I think MS-DOS games. I also played Cosmo, which was an alien creature. The one that really like got me though was Jazz Jackrabbit. Here, I'm gonna pull out my first,
Oh my gosh.
My first little time capsule thing. So like, here we go. It's playing havoc. But Jazz Jackrabbit was my favorite thing. This one's the second one, which had significantly better graphics. The first one was still 8-bits. This one had considerably more polygons, but it was more so in the they're all this arcade style.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're more this like scroller arcade style. All the levels are. And this one also, I remember vividly, it came with a each one of these came with a little comic book strip, and that explained the game in the beginning. So like, you know how games open up, and back then they didn't have a lot, they didn't have a lot of story to them. It was more like there's a princess in a castle, go save her, like the barest bones of a story to get you from point A to point B.
Right.
This one was a little bit different because the game devs, the creators, decided that they wanted more of a lore, so they gave each game had a little comic book to go with it to kind of give you a preface of what was to come in the game.
Yeah.
And like this one, I remember it was not highly story driven, but it was enough to keep you interested.
Yeah.
And like you can see, oh my gosh, come here. You can see the villains that they had. This one is called Portly Women. You can run into portly women. The bad guys were turtles in this. So it was rabbits versus turtles, tortoise and hare. So most of the bad guys are actually based off of turtles. So like you had a portly woman turtle, you had fencing turtles, and inner tube turtle. I think that was probably from a water level.
Yeah.
MS-DOS mode is how I got started.
So I got started even earlier. So my first video game that I ever played there was an after school program at the elementary school I was at that had an Atari. And so Pitfall was the first game I remember playing. And then, like Centipede and Pong and Space Invaders and stuff. And then I had a friend a couple years later who had an NES, and so was playing Mario Brothers, which to this day is still one of the hardest games ever because you die and you have to start all over. But then I didn't really play games until, again, the DOS era. And I got really into Myst and Star Wars X-Wing, and then of course Duke Nukem and Doom. These are all from the early 90s. But the thing I remember the most, especially like with Myst when Myst came out, it was like this, like one of the most complex games that had ever come out. And I remember having to go to the game store to get the big book that explains the game, to have to like flip through the book to try and figure out, to try and figure out how I do things, because it never failed. I would get utterly lost. And then of course we all know Oregon Trail, which you can't beat either.
Okay, but I want to say, and I'm so proud of this, I have beaten Amazon Trail.
Okay.
Many a time. And that was just out of sheer force of freaking will. I was determined. I think that's probably why I like games that are not technically fun, but like obsession worthy now.
Yes.
I love obsession worthy games. We are going to cover Pathologic 2, everybody.
Yes, we are. At one point, we are.
At one point, I currently am on day 4. Day 4 of 12. This is my second restart of the game.
Okay.
And it is difficult, but I love it. It's obsession worthy. So I feel like Oregon Trail, Amazon Trail, if you ever played a lot of like the point and click mystery games was very much like that. I mean, a lot of them were kind of also running on like spaghetti code. Like these games back then were barely patched and pieced together. I specifically remember a game called Titanic that was another point and click adventure that I must have bought 3 different discs, and all of them were broken from the very start. You couldn't get out of the first room, and I just gave up on it. I was like, this is there's nothing more feeble, that there's nothing that makes you feel more feeble and more helpless than a broken game. Fundamentally broken, you know.
Well, the other thing is so obviously we had the DOS games, we had the NES games, but like we also had the 80s and the 90s were the heydays of, and earlier eras too, but for us were the heydays of arcades. So I remember going to the arcades and just being blown away by the Ninja Turtles video game, by the X-Men video game, and then when Mortal Kombat came out, and like I was the definition of a button masher. I was just like boom, 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 boom. But I remember the kids that were like, because when Mortal Kombat came out for the arcade version, you had to, there was no internet or Reddit to look up all the different combos. And like the kids that figured out the combos for all the cool, moves, I'm just like, what are you doing? Because literally I'd play as Katana in Mortal Kombat, and then for X-Men I'd play as Storm, and I'm literally just like hitting all the buttons, and like I'd watch the other kids and I'm just like, how did you get Liu Kang to do that? That's so cool.
So I had a very humbling experience, maybe I want to say 4 months ago, with my good friend Dave. And Dave used to shoot me at cons back in the day. He's since given that up, but we still hang out together. We went to a place in downtown LA that is an arcade, but for adults. It's a bar, but also an arcade. It's just kind of like this fun nostalgia place to go to.
It's a fun place if it's a place I think it is.
It's definitely the place that you think.
There's only one.
It's definitely the place by Angel City Brewery.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. And so I was like, hey, we should play Mortal Kombat. Like this. No, it wasn't it was Street Fighter.
Yes, because they came out around the same time.
Exactly. I was like, we should play Street Fighter. I've never played it. This sounds like a lot of fun. And talk about something that became obsession worthy. Like very soon after that came a couple of cosplays.
You forget how hard those games were from the 80s and 90s. And it's like, and the fact that they were hard because, the technology wasn't there to have like, lots of save spots and things like that. Like if you died, you had to start over. There was no one to tell you what combos did certain things. So it's like
exactly the arcade games, you just had a leaderboard, and that was it.
It's like the kids have it so easy these days. You get lost, like I get lost in Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'm Googling. I'm looking for the walkthrough video to show me how do I get out of this fucking cave? Yeah.
So when I was playing with Dave, I was doing what you do. I was button mashing. I'm like, I'll just play this character and I'll just button mash. And he took me to school.
I thought I was a gamer, but now I'm
at that point I'm just like, I am not, because I didn't grow up. I had Nickel City down the street in San Diego growing up, and I didn't really go to it that often. Like at Chuck E. Cheese, I was the child that was like crawling up the the lane in order to put the ball into the like the hole in which, we got the lane and you throw the balls down it and
Oh,
it goes
yeah.
into like the different
Oh,
holes
this,
and
what is
stuff.
it? Ski ball or whatever?
Ski ball,
I am
something like that.
horrible at that. So yes, I get that.
Yeah, I was the child that crawled up the thing to just like yoink it into like the 500 point spot and get all my tickets. Terrible child, I know. But yeah, he definitely took me to school and like, oh, there's a lot more to this game than just like 3 buttons and a joystick. Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like simplicity really throws me off because so many games nowadays are not that way.
Right.
You have so many different menus and health bars to and HP and like skill trees.
It's not just scrolling anymore.
It's not just scrolling anymore. It's not just like how many like hearts you have on your life or how like far your lifeline's going down. It's a lot of things that you're monitoring and figuring out. But yeah, simplicity really just throws me for a loop a lot of times because I mean, like you're asking yourself, it's got to be more than this, right?
There's only 4 buttons or 3 buttons. Yeah, exactly.
Or a trick or a something.
Yeah. And there is, but you just got to learn them. Yeah. Well, it's like, I remember, so my brother, he ended up, so there was some game magazine he got, probably a GameStop. And on the back of it, you had to like write this letter, get it notarized and send it in, and you could be entered to win a Super NES.
Oh,
but like the arcade NES, so like the whole console thing, right? He ended up winning this thing. So we'd never had a game system in our house before, so we get this arcade Super NES, and I remember the first time I saw Donkey Kong on Donkey Kong Country for Super NES, came out in '94, and I was just like, and my dad even liked this game. It was like, this was the coolest thing ever. We're like, because finally we started having depth in the games, right?
Yeah.
It was no longer like, that was kind of the first, moving away from the 8-bit thing. And I just remember being like, and the music's like really catchy too for Donkey Kong. But yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I remember, I think Crash Bandicoot,
yeah.
Definitely was I was terrible at that. That gave me anxiety as a child because you're running and you got to collect all like, the things and you can't like fall into the pits or get hit by like, the trees or whatever it was. My friend owned that game. And so I only played it when I went over to her house.
Yeah.
And I was very bad at it. I still enjoyed it. But I was bad at it because it was like those QuickTime events. It was like before QuickTime events were a thing, more so.
Right.
But it was very much in that vein of Pitfall versus like QuickTime events. I mean, because the character was in 3D and it was that just blew my mind. I was like, what is this? I think that was actually the first console game that I ever played as well, because I was strictly PC. And I still was strictly PC. I didn't move to consoles until after college. And I mean, that was the only reason I did that was because I had to get I had just had to get a very like no frills MacBook because my PC had crashed on me. It crash dumped everything while I was in the middle of a final paper.
Oh no.
Yes. And that was so traumatic that it caused me to just like do a hard left into MacBook areas.
I had that happen too. Yeah.
I just had to have something that was reliable. And I'm like, I don't care. I just need to get through college and we'll figure out. And I didn't even have time to game in college either.
No. Yeah. Same.
So I
think I was doing, no, nothing. Yeah.
I was very much like a straight-laced student who cared way, way, way too much.
Yeah.
So there was probably 4 years where I didn't game. And then afterwards, my friend had given me his PS3 because he was moving on to the PS4. And he's like, I got this thing and I don't want it anymore. I'm like, gimme.
Yeah.
I will take it. and I will, I will become obsessed once more.
Well, yeah, like you, when I was in undergrad, I didn't do any games. But then when I got into the Army, that was about, so this would have been like 2004. That was about the time when multiplayer started to be a thing.
Okay. Was it COD?
Like literally
was it COD?
No, so it was Halo.
Okay. All right.
Halo. So literally, because, connecting Wi-Fi, that wasn't a thing yet. So the guys were in Iraq, and the guys would literally run wires to each of their, we called them chews, their little housing units, right? They'd run wires so they could connect their devices and play together. And so like Halo and Madden were the two games that like everybody in the military was playing in 2004.
I like that it's Madden. That's so...
Yep. And I just remember
basic.
It's pretty basic. But I just remember like playing Halo and just being like I can't fly worth shit. And I'm just like crashing this thing. And I'm like, I'm really tired, guys. I'm so sorry.
It's most embarrassing when okay, so like, and that's the thing too, is I also get highly embarrassed when I'm really shitty at something. And I get really bad secondhand embarrassment. So if somebody else is really shitty at something, then it's also a problem. So I'm not that good with playing. I'm not that good with playing with other people because I'm just like, oh God.
Yeah.
And I'll freeze up and I'll be really bad. Like, give me Horizon Zero Dawn and I will play the crap out of that. Give me any sort of like first person anything, I'll play the crap out of that. But like the minute you make it a team effort.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of the same way, but it's like, and then there was like another gap in my gaming, because I was doing grad school and everything. Right. But then I really got back into it. And that's when like, RPG games started really becoming popular, and the technology was getting better. And so I know for me, like two of the games that had the biggest influence on me were KOTOR and the Elder Scrolls series. So I played the original KOTOR, so I guess that would have been like 2000, or I played it after I got out of the Army. So it came out in 2003. So KOTOR 2 had already come out. So I played them back to back and was literally just blown away by the storytelling, and was just like, this is some of the best storytelling I've ever seen. And then I played Skyrim. And then after I played Skyrim, I went back and played Oblivion and Morrowind. And so it wasn't until then that I really started to look at video games as an art form.
Yeah.
And was just like so impressed with the storytelling and the performances and the technology. And then it was when I was playing through Mass Effect in 2007 that I was like, oh no, sorry, I was playing through it in 2010 and was like, this is something that could be a job. And like and I tell this to everybody, and I actually just had an interview with Jennifer Hale, who, if you don't know who she is, please get off our network. No, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. She was the voice of Femme Shepherd in Mass Effect, and she's done so many other things. And I actually told her in this interview, I was like, playing through Mass Effect as Femme Shep was like what inspired me to get into voiceover, because I was doing theater and all these other things. And it's like, so, we go from these MS-DOS games or Atari games as kids, and just watching the technology and how it's grown so much into a multi-billion-dollar industry that is an art form in and of itself that I think is now really respected. Because, back in the day, and well, even today, video games cause violence and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's art.
Okay. I fucking hate that argument. It's like, okay, no.
It literally came out today because, well, reasons, but yes.
That argument is, hate that argument. Because there's so much more to games than violence. And games, we'll talk about it in the Pathologic video, but games can be so much more.
So much more. And for me, they were an escape, right?
This game, which I wanted to mention, is Linsay, you're in this game.
In that game.
And
it was just this cute little, and if you don't know what it is,
this one is Cloud Punk.
It's this cute little Steam game,
it's an adorable indie game. You can also get it on PlayStation. That's where I played it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an adorable indie game. I believe Sophie from Mars um, pitched this game in the video on Cyberpunk 2077 as a on a list of other Cyberpunk games that are much better to play
at 1/16 of the cost to produce.
Yes, and to buy.
And to buy, yes.
Funny enough. Yeah, no, I had bought this game because I knew you were in it and I wanted to play it. I wanted to support you, but I also wanted just a nice, fun little indie romp, and it's very cute. But yeah, no, it's when you get into games, when it becomes something that's a lot more than just playing, it's, you know, living the lifestyle, it's being involved in the community, it's creating the games, voicing the games, being a part of it. I feel like there is a transition for everybody in which they stop becoming a watcher and they more so join in the fight to add on to the community and to, you know, be on the front lines of creating what I think is a very interesting frontier for art. There's a ton of possibilities that are unexplored.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and it's really, video games have been the ones driving the technology. I mean, you know, and I've had this conversation with people before when I try to explain motion capture to them, and they're like, oh, Lord of the Rings, Gollum is what I usually say. But the thing is like video games had been using mocap long before Gollum was a thing. And so it's like, now you have movies that are, the VFX are being done in game engines. Like they're literally called game engines now. So it's like, you know, what's being done in the game industry is really driving a lot of other technological enterprises out there, because they're the ones who have been pushing, you know, pushing the envelope. And I still to this day will argue that, you know, some of the writing and storytelling in video games far surpasses anything that we see in television and film, because, you know, like if I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn or Skyrim or KOTOR, it's like I'm playing this game for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I get to know these characters in this world. And
it's not only a time investment, it's an emotional investment. You know, you actually can go on that journey or feel like you're going on that journey. And it's another level on which I personally have never had TV or film reach me at, or engage me at the very least. But yeah, so
those are our games, you know. I mean, obviously there's more that we didn't touch on. I mean, you know, but
I bring up some of my relics I've got here. I've got some crazy things. This one, I realized that like a lot of the dust jackets that I have for these things are like the sequels, but here is Cats 2, and I played Cats 1, but like Cats 2 came out, and it's basically like an adoption agency where you can adopt like different cats. But these things, let me find what they actually looked like in game. Here it is. Okay, so in game, these things are freaking cursed. I give you the design. Look at them. Look,
it's so cute.
They're like, I don't even know how to describe them, but like the eyes are just bulging. They're a bunch of circles. They're definitely just made out of a bunch of polygons that they molded into circles, and like it's there, and the fur is rendered so poorly, and the eyes are just haunted things. But for me, when I was a kid, like it was the coolest thing because you could have a virtual pet. You could have as many virtual pets as you wanted. There's cats, but they also had dogs, and I did have both, and I did buy both of them. This one is a staple in many people's.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
007.
This one is a staple in many people's library. Not only do I have the game, but I also have the official strategy guide.
Oh, damn.
I feel like, okay.
Like, I don't have any of that stuff. Like, I got rid of all of those things. And I still wish I had my original Game Boy, because I remember when the Game Boy came out and we were all just like, and again, green screen, all these things, but we thought it was the coolest thing ever that we could take this thing with us and play whenever we wanted.
Right. I think I bought these strategy guides. Some of them I actually needed and wanted, like freaking Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. Like,
oh man, the Indiana Jones for DOS was like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you had to go to GameStop or Blockbuster and buy the thick ass books to try and figure out how to play your stupid game.
For context, this is about, it's over an inch thick. This is Nightfire. So this is what they usually look like. So not like, this is quadruple the size of that. This one is No One Lives Forever 2. No One Lives Forever 1 is absolutely amazing. Number 2 is good. But if you can get a hold of No One Lives Forever 1, I would. Especially if you're an Archer fan, because I swear to God, they ripped them off, because the main character in this, it is like an Austin Powers, like sort of James Bond spoof, but the spy is female and it takes place in the 1960s. This one takes place in the 70s, but the first one is the 60s, and it's hilarious. It's really funny. The reason why I think that Archer just straight up ripped it off is because the main character in this is named Kate Archer.
Coincidence? I think not.
The exact same theme, the exact same concept. You cannot tell me that was just like, oh, it's just a coincidence. They played, and it's fine. I love Archer.
Yeah.
I know they played the game and they're like, we can make a TV show out of this. But yeah, Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine.
That was hard. I remember, yeah.
Many nights, many sleepless nights, my sister and I played this game. And we were so obsessed that like the pages are ripped out. The pages are falling out. Pages are ripped out. But like I actually really liked this book because the character designs were in the book, and you got to see all the, I don't know why they didn't draw Indiana Jones. It's just his like weird rough polygon look, but like you can see like they drew out the characters and stuff, so you can get a lot better idea of what these characters and like, the monsters and things were supposed to kind of look like outside of their like rough, rugged polygon form. And so I really loved having these books because they kind of fleshed out the world a little bit more. But yeah, let's not forget Zoo Tycoon, by the way. That, I think this made serial killers out of many of people, because the only reason to have this game and with Roller Coaster Tycoon as well was to see like all the little polygon people get just like exploded off of rides, or get eaten by a dinosaur or a tiger in your park because whoops, the cage got opened up.
Well, that was our trip down memory lane. And of course, we would love to know what games inspired you, and what are some of your earliest memories of video games. And
we, as you can see, I have a whole pile over here that's sitting over here.
We might have to do another episode of this.
Exactly. I have this one that actually almost turned me off of gaming as a child.
Tomb Raider.
This one actually made me think I was bad at games, because when I was young enough to feel like the game couldn't be bugged, the game couldn't be bad, it's you who is the bad player.
I
And
definitely raged through the controller while playing Mario Brothers on several occasions. So
yeah,
I feel yeah.
Angel of Darkness almost tanked the entire Tomb Raider franchise. Might have to do a standalone episode about that.
We've talked about doing a standalone episode on all the Lara Croft or all the Tomb Raiders. So yeah, we might have to do that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. This has been a blast and just a walk down memory lane. So yeah, tell us, what games you guys played growing up. And this has been the Rollout.
And we will geek with you next week.
Oh, it's getting better.
We're getting it. All right.
Bye, guys.